La forêt est encore pacifique, mais il ne sera jamais la même. Il est maintenant une terre sacrée, rendue sacrée par le sang des héros. In these woods, boys became warriors, men became legends. It is a tale of glory and sacrifice. But as the years go by, there are fewer left to tell it. But we get ahead of ourselves, for this story begins years earlier, thousands of miles away.
The Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, by air, President Roosevelt has just announced.
That Sunday morning, I saw the Zeros fly by. It was unbelievable. Later on, you come to realize that, hey, these are Japanese.
I will never forget that Sunday morning. The Japanese planes that bombed Pearl Harbor. This is no kidding. This is real.
My brother and I both volunteered, and they threw us out of the recruiting office.
They said, wait a minute, you're a Jap. We don't want Japs in the Navy. Get out of here. I was really in shock because I said, I'm an American. 1943 comes along, and they decide they're going to form the 100th Battalion.
The marching cadence of Uncle Sam's fighting men. Americans with Japanese faces and Japanese names.
And so began the journey of the 100th Infantry Battalion. Of the 10,000 who volunteered from Hawaii, 2,600 made the grade. They were joined by 1,500 Nisei from internment camps, eager to prove their loyalty, determined not to bring shame upon their families.
And I remember the letter from my mother. She said, soon you will be fighting the enemy. My son, do not be a coward. Be brave for your father and your family.
I knew I might die. I believed that as a result of our sacrifice, my folks back home and posterity would have a better life.
The young soldiers would not have to wait long to show their mettle. Next stop, Africa, and onward to Italy, now a battalion of the 442nd Regimental Combat Team. And their go-for-broke spirit proved indefatigable in victories at Anzio, Benevento, Monte Cassino, Castellina Marittima, and to the very gates of Rome, while suffering tremendous casualties.
People tend to try to find something romantic about war. It's horrible, and that's an understatement.
On the battlefields of Italy, many would earn their purple ribbons and the respect of their superiors.
You have demonstrated on the field of battle. You are always willing to close with the enemy. He has no bluff on you, and you've always defeated him. America is proud of you.
But Italy would prove to be the prelude to a new and dangerous mission, one that would affirm the reputation of the 100th Battalion, 442nd, as the fiercest fighting unit in Europe. Leaving silently the port of Napoli, 4 Navy transports would slip past Sardinia, through the Strait of Bonifacio, to the southern shores of France.
Back to Briere, Legacy of the 100th is proudly presented by Nonstop Travel, Hawaiian Telcom, Hawaiian Electric Industries, PAR Hawaii, and American Savings Bank.
So, Grandpa, how's the Japan cruise with Nonstop Travel?
You're right. Definitely a winner.
Yeah?
And lots of great food, shows, and activities. And even some casino action. And the escorted land tours were a lot of fun. Saw the real Japan.
And you don't smell like an ashtray.
Sounds way more interesting than a Vegas trip. So, who's next?
I'm thinking Alaska.
Who? Alaska what?
Next trip, make a sure bet. Non-stop travel.
Life is the rhythm that connects us.
We are vessels of aloha, love connecting all.
In ways big and small, we make a difference.
Connecting empowers us to change the world.
When we connect, something greater happens.
The fall of France was the feather in Hitler's cap. The Nazi occupation would formulate an intense Allied campaign that would send forces to all borders.
For the Nice, the campaign started here in Marseille and then moved north to Aix-en-Provence and Avignon and finally to the region of France known as the Grand Est, very close to the German border.
There they joined the 36th Division of the 7th Army under General John Dahlquist, an ambitious two-star general with no combat experience. His orders? Take the German-occupied village of Bruyères.
I don't think they realize what a difficult ground we had to traverse. There's 4 hills above Bruyères, and we had to take those hills for the town to be free.
Well, like in Bruyères, that was really a battle that we had to fight because they didn't give up, the Germans.
Après plusieurs jours de combat, les premiers Américains ont percé. Ils sont hawaïens. Les Allemands se sont finalement rendus et ont mis les mains en l'air. Nous sommes très heureux.
The French were overjoyed to see us, but then after the liberation, we witnessed the town's wrath on collaborators. Male collaborators were beaten. Female collaborators were shaved bald and marched through town.
The Hawaiians gave candies to my son, cigarettes to my husband, and they paid me for the cabbages they took from my garden, and even asked my permission to do so.
It was a victorious march through the liberated village. They march again today.
It's just really incredibly moving. I mean, I'm choking up just being here and thinking about the history, and to read Audrey's uncle's war memoirs, talking about fighting in that hill, probably right over there. Irreplaceable.
De toute façon, on continuera à faire tous les ans les anniversaires parce que c'est ancré dans l'histoire de Bruyères.
People from Hawaii and people from France celebrating what it means to fight for peace. And I just feel honored to be here, to be part of this 75th anniversary.
At nearly every corner, Bruyères honors the Nisei.
George Washington Tsuyama was an ordinary soldier, just like thousands of others that came and fought and died. And I didn't want him to be forgotten.
His whole identity, I think, was formed around being here, fighting with his brothers. I'm sorry. And so to be here, where it all happened, is everything.
Now that I'm actually on site, I guess you can tell I'm choked up. And so there's family history here. And that means a lot. And so there are 3 of us, 2 of his nephews and 1 niece. I'm hoping he feels our presence.
12-year-old Michel Perrat watched as Yohei and his unit marched out of the woods past his father's farm. Soon after, an explosion sent a shard of shrapnel into Yohei's throat. He was the first to die in the Val-sur-Velone. He was 22. After the war, despite extreme poverty, the townspeople scraped up enough francs for a wooden monument, later replaced by stone. Michel's father vowed that the Perrat family would watch over it. Michel, now 87, has tended to the stone for 70 years, keeping it clear of dust and weeds. Tasks his son Pierre-Frédéric will soon take over. The gifts are letters, pictures, and snacks, but what is really being exchanged here is gratitude for a promise to a fallen soldier and for a life given for a family's freedom.
On Saturday, memorial services were held. I didn't go. You know how I feel about funerals. There are many sad memories of friends who fell in battle. Young, fresh-faced, eager. What a price they paid for all of us.
It's an inspiration to every person that takes an oath to defend the country. People before did heroic things, and you are carrying on their legacy.
There's a lot of people, Yonsei generation, that don't know about the 442nd Regiment and the 100th Battalion, and this is an incredible story to share.
I only got about 13 years with my grandfather. It kind of brings to light who were part of my family.
Being Jewish, I never would have been born, so the sacrifice of these soldiers not only liberated France, but they saved the lives and liberated the United States.
My father, one of his dying wishes was that I come here to visit. So this wasn't only just a opportunity to visit my grandfather, but also to make good on a wish that my father had.
His granddaughter married a Frenchman, so married the people that he helped save. So the blood he shed was truly not in vain.
They have come in search of that final piece of the puzzle of an unspoken past. Perhaps here at Epinal, they will find some measure of peace and a deeper understanding of the legacy that is now theirs to uphold.
Back to Briere, Legacy of the 100th is proudly presented by Kyoya Hotels and Resorts, the Plaza Assisted Living, Honolulu Japanese Chamber of Commerce, and Japanese Cultural Center of Hawaii.
Kyoya Hotels and Resorts. Iconic properties, transformative experiences, lifetime memories. Immerse yourself at one of our 6 resorts in Waikiki, Maui, and San Francisco. The Royal Hawaiian, Sheraton Waikiki, Sheraton Princess Kaiulani, Moana Surfrider, Sheraton Maui Resort and Spa, and the Palace Hotel in San Francisco. Kyoya Hotels and Resorts. Visit us today.
The Plaza is a small community. Everyone knows your face. You will definitely find a group that is very friendly.
I have 3 or 4 friends. We play cards every day.
It started with a dining room.
We were always together.
We just click.
We get to talking and forget the time.
I think we are just like
Sisters. Yeah, family already.
The people make it feel like home.
It is a quiet village in the French countryside with a bakery, a post office, and a rue de 442nd. What happened here in the hills beyond turned the tide of World War II in France. Nisei soldiers ousted German occupiers, earning the admiration of Bruyerians even today.
These men brought us liberty, so we owe these men our independence, our freedom, our prosperity.
The Honolulu Japanese Chamber of Commerce and Japanese Cultural Center of Hawaii salute our Nisei heroes.
Immortalized in music by Debussy, the Vosges is legend for its halcyon splendor. But this mountain range will forever be remembered for one of the most pivotal battles of the Nisei's French campaign. Beyond these trees is Germany. Against the advice of his officers, General Dahlquist orders the 36th Infantry Division, known as the Texas Battalion, to push relentlessly into the hills. The premature move soon finds the 275 men surrounded by Germans.
General Dahlquist, a man who was obsessed to being the first general to reach Germany, and a man who broke many of the basic rules of command.
The Texans weren't actually lost. They knew exactly where they were, and so did the Germans. It was implied this battalion was doomed.
On your feet, we're going up.
It was so dark that night, you couldn't see the hand in front of you.
We held on to each other's, whatever it is, their coattail, until we made contact with the enemy. all hell is breaking loose, right? They're just shooting at you because this is the final stand by the Germans.
He saw the guys fall left and right. He saw their dead bodies. We'd lost half of the men because of the 8 days of battle.
It was so bad that in fact, I prayed.
Days pass. The Texans wait. Their ammo and food nearly depleted, their numbers cut down every day.
After a week, we wondered, will they be able to come and get us? When are they going to come?
Final month, he got up and he got shot. Then body went limp on me, and then I know he died. And I cried. Oh, then, God, why? I lay him down and I look at all the blood in my hands and I said, oh, you son of a bitch. I picked up the Tommy gun and I zigzag bags up to him.
We kept pushing. I could see in the distance. I saw this GI looking straight in my direction.
I was on outpost. I strained my eyes. I see an American soldier.
I see this dark-skinned kid. Here was a brother of mine coming to save my life.
We yelled our head out and shot at everything that moved or didn't move. And finally, we broke through, you know.
They broke their way through. These two are Americans, and they've proved it with the full measure of their loyalty.
We threw down our weapons and everyone hugged each other, saying, "Thank you, thank you."
You're in the same area, same foxhole, and he told Subriel, stay down. But Subriel went up to look. He went up, and that's when he got shot. When he fell down, it fell right in Joe's arms. A lot of our men got killed before we even got started that day. Yeah.
This water hole was the only water hole, not only for the Lost Battalion, but for the Germans. So they would take turns coming down with their canteens and getting water. I know it was very difficult to dig the foxholes because of the roots from all the trees, but it was the only thing the soldiers could do for any sort of protection. There's a painting of the Banzai Charge, which is now hanging in the Pentagon.
In military, you always want the higher ground because it's much easier to shoot down on the enemy who have to come up the hill to get you. It just speaks about the courage that it takes.
After a month of fighting, 2/3 lay dead or injured. In the rescue of the Lost Battalion alone, Nisei casualties were 4 times the number of men rescued.
General Dahlquist wanted the 442nd to pass in review. Said, when I order everyone to pass in review, I mean everybody will pass in review. This is the first time I saw the colonel cry. And he said, this is all I have left.
In the months following the rescue, the 100th rejoined other units of the 442nd. Some returned to Italy or the south of France. Others crossed the border to rescue the prisoners of Dachau. 7 months after the Battle of Bruyères, the men of the 442nd get the word. And 3 months later,
when they told us the war was over, everyone was solemn. No celebrating, we just smiled.
I'll be home for Christmas.
Just think, darling, I'll be home for Christmas, just as this guy on the radio is singing about. I better stop now before I get maudlin. Gee, I love you so doggone much.
The doorbell rang. There stood Min with his face beaming. He twirled me around again and again and kept repeating, "It's so good to be home."
When I saw my father, we just grabbed each other and just danced in joy. Right there I come home and he grabbed me and we just jumping up and down. I'll be home for
if only
Back to Bruyere, Legacy of the 100th is proudly presented by Nonstop Travel, Hawaiian Telcom, Hawaiian Electric Industries, PAR Hawaii, and American Savings Bank.
You were born with a small footprint. You should go through life with one too. Let's be the generation that preserves Hawaii for generations to come. Together, we can reduce our carbon footprint and transition Hawaii to a 100% clean energy future. For the Aina, for Ohana, for our Hawaii. Join us at hawaiianelectric.com/footprint.
It's now or never, darling.
It's time to fill up or shut up. Woo! Yeah. Let's go.
% of us have worries about money. Let's talk. American Savings Bank.
You're watching KHON2, working for Hawaii.
Écoutez, je trouve que c'est une journée très très émotionnelle avec les familles, les amis de ces soldats qui sont tombés ici il y a 75 ans. Ces nippo-américains qui sont venus délivrer la France et délivrer aussi le bataillon texan.
Our father was First Lieutenant Erwin H. Blonder, Lost Battalion.
My father, Aki Kirishima, was one of Company K.
So your father rescued their father. It is a moment in time that you never think will happen. And we're connected forever.
Every town that we went to, they would say, Nisei saved us from fascism. And they teach their kids. We need to teach our kids.
Seeing these people who celebrate year after year the sacrifice that my ancestors have made has just been incredible. I mean, it makes me really proud to be Japanese American.
What touched me was where the children sang Hawaii Pono'i. And they raised the American and the French flag together. It was so touching.
I really believe our responsibility is to remember the soldiers of the 100th and the 442nd, what they did for us so that we could live the lives that we live.
It brings back full circle, you know, what our parents went through. Now we just need to continue so nobody forgets.
Today, at long last, we award the Congressional Gold Medal to a group of Americans who are as deserving of it as any I have ever known.
We remember those for whom today came too late, and we particularly honor those who never came home.
The Nisei warriors had to deal with the discrimination, distrust, and outright hostility from the very same country they were defending with their very same lives.
We recognize them today with our nation's highest military honor, the Medal of Honor. They fought in France and liberated towns that still remember them with memorials. They took 800 casualties in just 5 days of continuous combat in southern France to rescue the lost battalion of Texas.
Medal of Honor is awarded to Private Barney F. Hajiro for extraordinary heroism in action in the vicinity of Bruyères and Bifontaine, eastern France.
Private George T. Sakato for extraordinary heroism in action in the vicinity of Bifontaine, France.
Staff Sergeant Robert T. Kuroda for extraordinary heroism in action near Bruyères, France. Private First Class Joe M. Nishimoto for extraordinary heroism in action near La Huzère, France. Technician James K. Okubu for extraordinary heroism in action in eastern France.
This has been a long journey, but a glorious one. I'm certain those who are resting in cemeteries are pleased with this day.